Everyone has moments in life they can't just stop thinking about. They can be embarrassing things, like that one time you face planted in front of a group of teenagers, or something amazing like the first time you hosted your family for the holidays. And on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, hosted by me, Keke Palmer, and presented by BMW, we know to savor the good memories and let go of the bad. And one thing everyone remembers fondly is their first time behind the wheel of a BMW. So come join me and BMW this summer as we explore pop culture moments and topics you just can't stop thinking about on Baby, This is Keke Palmer, sponsored by BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is The Briefing Room? It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
And welcome back to Scarred for Life, the podcast where we open up old wounds by looking back at the films that scared us as kids. I'm Terry.
And I'm Mary Beth.
In each episode, our special guest brings with them a movie that traumatized them as a child.
This week, our guest is Mickey Reece. A writer-director with over 25 films to his name, his film Climate of the Hunter was a festival favorite and is currently playing on Shudder in the US and was recently released on VOD in the UK. His latest film, Agnes, just debuted at Fantasia Festival 2021. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm happy to be here.
We're super excited to chat with you. Ever since Mary Beth and I saw Climate of the Hunter, I think it was at Chattanooga last year.
Yeah, it was Chattanooga last year, I think.
You've been someone I've desperately wanted to talk to, so we're really happy that you're able to come on today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. So before we do talk about your creative endeavors, let's bring it back to the beginning. How did you get introduced to horror?
So I had an older brother. Now, of course, there were I was a kid. I was very young. I can't remember the exact age. He's 9 years older than me, and I think he was, 16 or whatever. So he worked at this video store called Durham's. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, there were movies I liked. I remember going to the theater with a friend to see Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Batman. So that's how old I am, and those were the movies. And of course, in Five-O Goes West and American Tail, Land Before Time. These are movies I remember as a kid, but my brother was really into horror movies for whatever reason, and he would bring home horror movies every night, a couple every night. So we would watch horror movies every night, and I just thought that, like I said, I knew of other movies, but I thought that these were kind of some of the only movies. You know what I mean? Horror movies were just the movies. You know what I mean? I didn't know enough different types of movies other than animated or kids movies. I thought just there's the animated movies that I watch because I'm a kid, and then there's horror movies, and those are the only two types of movies. Right. So
honestly, that sounds incredible. If those were the only two types of movies.
Right.
I mean, that was kind of the same for me too, because I grew up in the 80s. I'm 40, so I grew up in the 80s, and I saw a lot of animated stuff, and then I'd be introduced to horror stuff, and for me, those were the two genres.
Yeah. So so we watched everything that he ever brought home. So everything that was on VHS at Durham's, which was a pretty extensive selection for horror for whatever reason. I don't know. But that's all he watched. So I just got used to watching, all the Nightmare on Elm Streets and Friday the 13th, all the big, I don't know. I can't go back and look at an 80s horror movie that I haven't seen.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what were a few of the favorites that you guys watched together while you were growing up?
God, I don't know. Dead Alive, I remember it very well.
Hell yeah.
Oh, wow.
That was amazing.
But, unfortunately, as I got older and, my taste kind of changed when I realized there were other movies besides horror movies. I was, kind of like not really into horror movies anymore. I can't really say that.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I saw Candyman last night. You know what I mean? I'll still go see horror movies. I still watch them, but I mean, I don't know that that's my favorite genre of film. I think I lean more towards like dramedies, like Alexander Payne stuff is like, that's my forte, but no one's going to let me make those movies yet. So horror is the way, is the way into like low budget filmmaking to kind of like, build your career in that way. I mean, it's an easy path, I guess. So, it was in making horror films, I guess, whatever you call mine, horror, I guess, whatever they are. It's, by design, they're kind of reinventing them because, I'm bored with them. I'm bored with the same old horror movies. So it's always like a matter of trying to recreate or, redesign a horror movie. Like, so do something
Gotcha.
that you don't normally see so that, other people that might be bored with it might, like it.
Well,
Yeah.
I know this is jumping ahead, but I wanted to speak to that because Agnes is is really like scratches that itch for me because we like Terry and I are a little bit of a disagreement about like exorcism movies. I like them a little bit more than Terry. And I know that they have a very similar, like a very familiar plot. And Agnes was so cool because you were like, how about we just say fuck that and just do something completely different? And it's so cool. And like the more I've thought about it, the more I've been so impressed with like what you were able to accomplish with the idea of an exorcism movie. And it's completely different. It's so cool.
Well, I mean, it's really not very different in the beginning. I mean, the idea is to kind of, lure the audience in with like the traditional exorcism movie and then be like, all right, now watch this thing.
It's incredible. It's such a cool, like, I think the bait and switch. I was like, wait, what in the hell? Like, did that really just happen? And it did. You did that.
Yeah, and it's to the degree of like, if we didn't do all the exorcism tropes like at the beginning and make it, a traditional, exorcism movie, then no one would be, you know what I mean? It wouldn't, the audience wouldn't be fooled, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of going off of what Mary Beth was just saying, like I was not raised religious. I don't really have an affinity to like religious horror or exorcism movies. I've seen them. I think movies today are doing some more interesting things, like by taking different aspects of it. Like we saw a couple this year that have taken like a Bruja approach to it, or have taken a Jewish approach to it. And I think that the way that filmmaking today is kind of taking these tropes and running with it is more interesting. But what I really loved about Agnes, since we're going there, is the fact that
I jumped very ahead of the questions.
It takes like a 2 hour, an hour and a half, like exorcism movie, kind of condenses it into like the sort of the first half of the film, and then just sort of pulls the rug out. And as someone who is not a huge fan of exorcism movies, I was just entertained the entire way through because of that.
And also the movie we're going to talk about, later in this podcast, I only saw The Exorcism once, and that was in theaters when they re-released it in maybe, was it late 90s or early 2000s or something?
Yep, it was like, I think it was around 99 or 2000 when they did that sort of Exorcist, some kind of cut thing.
Yeah,
right?
And I saw it and I was like, fucking damn, this is a scary ass movie. This is like really awesome. And never watched it again. Still haven't seen it again. And I don't ever go back if I'm making a certain kind of movie. I don't really go back and watch the other movies. I just kind of like craft them out of like what I remember the movie being like. You know what I mean? And so to read reviews and stuff, and people be like, it's like similar to The Exorcist, like the story with the priest and stuff. And I'm like, I don't even remember that. So it was just like embedded in my subconscious or something.
Well, and so I guess like going back to then like your horror history and kind of like horror being embedded, like being embedded in your subconscious. Do you remember what your first horror movie was?
No way. I was too young. I was too young. Like I said, my brother was 9 years older than me. It could have been any number of any number of movies.
It's so interesting though that you have that age difference with your brother, because I have that with, I'm the oldest and my brother is 8 years younger than me, and I seem like I was your brother for my brother, because I introduced him to the horror genre, took him to see movies that were way above his age level that like he probably shouldn't have seen, and I think I don't know, I think older siblings can be good for that.
Yeah, I remember my mom taking me to see The Doors, like in theaters. Oh. I don't know what was wrong with my mom, but that movie was fucking awesome as a kid. Like for whatever reason, like I was like, God, that shit's haunting as hell.
Okay, so transitioning, let's talk about have you always wanted to be a filmmaker? How did you get interested in making movies?
My parents had a camcorder, and me and the neighbor kid, we saw Train Spotting, and me and the neighbor kid were like, just, we were into like punk music and stuff, so it wasn't like, so we would like, dress cool and like just like heroin, it's really fucking good, and just do like, little scenes, not from Train Spotting, but just like our own version of Train Spotting, like we're like fucking 10. Like 10, 11, I don't know, like shooting fake heroin in our little movie.
Oh my god!
Yeah, and then I met some other friends. And then I started high school and met some other friends that were that was like whenever Pulp Fiction had came out, and so like that was a big influence on all the kids. So I met two other guys that wanted to start making movies too, based on Tarantino stuff, and I was like, okay, cool. So we started making mob movies, like crime movies.
Okay.
So yeah, that was that's what started it, and then I got my own. It was the camera that we were using belonged to my friend Rich, and then I got my own camera for Christmas one year and just went to town, just making movie after movie after movie, just like anything I could make, anything I could do. And then when I got a car, it was fucking over. Because then I can drive to the locations and film. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
Right. And it was a small town too.
Where'd you grow up?
Newcastle, Oklahoma. It's a very very small town. And a lot of it's drugs and that's about it. And so, and I was definitely into drugs, but I was more into filmmaking. I don't know. That was like enough high for me for some reason. I know that sounds fucking cheesy as hell, but it really was. It was like, filming with my friends and having a good time and making these movies was like better than, any drug. I felt like.
Yeah.
What kind of movies did you make when you were younger? Besides like, I know you talk about the crime movies. Like, were there any other kinds of movies that you really liked to make?
Well, that's why I said whenever I got my camera, I wasn't beholden to these, Tarantino fans anymore. You know what I mean? Like these other kids that were making the movies, I could make whatever the hell I wanted. So every one of them was different.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a documentary on the Alamo on Demand, and it's kind of like a 30-minute documentary, and it has a lot of those old movies, and it's just like kind of describing the ascent or whatever you want to call it of graduating from making home movies with your friends to making bigger movies.
Cool.
Because I don't know, because I wouldn't know where to start in describing like the movies that we made. You know what I mean? They're all in there, but we made every kind of movie as a kid, and they're garbage looking. I mean, they're just really crappy home videos essentially, but edited with an iMac, like iMovie. So they're a little bit more glorified than a home video, but.
So how did you transition from making those kind of home movies into being a filmmaker?
I didn't. I still doing the exact same thing. You know what I mean?
Wow.
It hasn't changed. God, I don't know. I started making movies with, more people became involved, more people became interested, and then people started kind of throwing in money. I met this lady named Beth Alonzo, goddamn, just fucking angel woman, and she came to one of our premiere. We'd make these movies and then premiere them at the Oklahoma Contemporary, which is this art museum, and they have a little theater there, and so that's where we would premiere our movies, like every, make like 2, 3 a year. We built up, like people came to them actually, like, we actually had people coming to them, like, 150, 200 people. So then this lady, and we were making them for free, like just, with a camera, with like a DSLR camera with a mic attached to them. This is graduating from obviously the little Sony handy cams or whatever the hell we were using when we were kids. Then this lady, Beth Alonzo, came up and she was like, hey, I want to start like giving you guys money for these movies. And so then we had budgets of like $5,000. Like, I mean, could you fucking imagine? Like, like we're like making movies for free, like just like with just scraps all your life. And then then you got $5,000. It was like amazing. So that's why I'm, so appreciative now that I'm able to work with bigger budgets. But I mean, my budgets are very small. To me, they're fucking huge. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all about perspective. Wow. So have you just learned along the way, or did you go to film school?
I didn't have time to go to film school. I was too busy making movies.
Fuck yeah. Like, that's amazing. I was too busy making movies for film school.
I could not have imagined. Well, first of all, I'm not good at any kind of school. Like, it's a wonder I even, got out of high school. I'm just ADD. I just don't care. You know what I mean? And so I know that there's an easier way. People always ask like advice and like, how do you, how did you get to this point? Like for other filmmakers that aren't working with the same size budgets and things. Like, I always just say, I guarantee you, whatever, you don't want to take advice from me, there's got to be an easier way than the way I did it. You know what I mean? Like, so like, probably, go to film school. You know what I mean? It ultimately just depends on taste and developing your taste. It's not necessarily like, I mean, I guess, technique is involved, but I mean, after a while, you just, like, it's just like anything, you're just working through your subconscious.
Yeah. Well, you said you were putting out 2 to 3 movies per year for a while, because you have almost over 25 movies under your belt.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's a wild number.
They're not good though. I mean, there's.
You didn't have to say that. You didn't have to say it.
They all have their charms. There's a couple real bad ones, and I'd say there's probably a good 7 to 8 watchable ones. I guess now that the last 2 movies, I don't know, there's probably 10 now.
What was the turning point for you for thinking that you were making, as you say, good movies? Or
I wanted to make this the Elvis movie, Mickey Reese's Alien, and I was like, oh fuck, how am I gonna do this? I can't do this like we do all the other mumblecore style movies. You know what I mean? I've got to have like costumes and production design and a cinematographer. I've got to have these things. It's the only way that we can do this. And so we did a Kickstarter, and then through that just kind of like met other people, like this gentleman Ron Stewart, who gave us his house to use for the movie. And it's just this big giant house. It absolutely doesn't resemble Elvis's mansion at all, but it didn't matter because it's absurdist. It's just a surrealist movie, so you're hardly caring about accuracies. So meeting him, and then he had some friends, and so we started just networking and being able to like increase our budgets that way. And then Strike Their Mistress and Cures Heart, that was the movie after Alien. We did that and played at Fantastic Fest, and that was kind of the big like turning point to where met Divide and Conquer, and they supported Climate of the Hunter. Just networking and meeting people and going to festivals and getting there. I mean, it's very new still. I mean, Strike Their Mistress premiered in 2018. So, I mean, we made 3 movies since then, but I'm still trying to work fast,
Yeah, I get that. Since you brought up Climate of the Hunter, I want to talk about Ben Hall and his performance.
He's fucking awesome, right?
He's amazing. I loved him in both that movie and Agnes. Have you worked with him before in previous, or was Climate of the Hunter the first?
There's a movie called Arrows of Outrageous Fortune. In between Strike and I forgot about that movie. So that's 4. So like, a buddy of mine introduced me to him, and he said like, this is the best actor in town, and I just, saw some of the stuff, and I'm like, cool, well, come do this little scene in this Arrows of Outrageous Fortune movie we're doing, and then after that, he was great, and he was easy to work with, and we got along, and so I wrote a role for him.
Hell yeah.
And that was Climate of the Hunter.
He's so charismatic.
I will say this, he's awesome in Climate, he's awesome in Agnes. His best role is in Country Gold, this movie we just shot. his best performance. He's fucking awesome. That's all I'll say. I can't say anymore.
Now I was going to say, tell us more about that, but never mind.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Fine. Cool.
Yeah, because according to IMDb, you're in post-production on that. So are we going to see that soon?
I hope so. Yeah, I mean, if I could just get them done and then just show them, that would be fine. But now we're doing festivals and stuff, and you got to wait and all that.
Right.
You know the business.
Yeah. How is Fantasia this year with Agnes? I mean, it was all virtual, so I know it's like kind of weird.
Oh, it was fucking great. Fantasia's awesome, man.
Fantasia's the best. It's such a good
so
festival.
Cool. So with Climate played at Fantastic Fest, and then we played Chattanooga, which is that's quite a ways apart.
It is. Yeah. It's September to like April.
So
I think.
We're sitting there on Climate, and between that and Chattanooga, and just like, I guess this movie's not that good. You know what I mean? It's just kind of sitting around. And then we got some good reviews out of Chattanooga, and that was cool. And then whenever we got to Fantasia, it was just like, I mean, you're 5 reviews a day or something. You know what I mean? That's the only thing I can gauge it on. It being virtual is just kind of like people, watching it and writing on Letterboxd, or critics, reviewing it with like real cool quotes like you gave us.
That was my first pull quote, and I was so excited to see it there because I love Climate. I loved it so much.
Thank you. I did too.
So it's on Shudder. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about what? Because we haven't really actually dug into the plot of it. Can you tell our listeners what Climate of the Hunter is about?
It's hard for me to. I can't do that. The two ladies vie for the affection of a man who may not be a vampire. I mean, that is literally the movie. It's not. It's hard for me to put it into those words like in a plot, because the movie doesn't even have a plot. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily. It's just these characters, just a hangout movie. Which so is Agnes. Agnes starts out like pretty procedural in the beginning, but then just becomes a hangout movie, and that's those are the movies I love. Movies with no real story, no real plot. Just characters hanging out.
Yeah. I've also noticed, I guess in between these two films, at least, is an obsession with like a focus on food. What is that about?
I like food.
Yeah. Well, I mean, me too.
Fair. I guess that's an answer.
Yeah, I don't have anything more than that. Just okay. I like food. Strike has that German chocolate cake, and then it was just kind of to me, the three movies are like a loose trilogy. Strike, Climb the Hunter, and Agnes. They're all these kind of female-centric horror drama. Almost. What do you call those movies? The little small movies, not basement. What's the word I'm looking for? Chamber piece.
Oh.
You know what I mean? They're all.
Nope.
Yeah, they're all kind of in that vein, and so I kind of like put them all three as like a loose trilogy, I guess.
Cool. That's
and
awesome.
And Strike's got the cake, and Climb Hunter's got all the food, and then got to open up with a cake.
Yeah, the moment I saw Agnes and there's that cake being carted down the convent, I was like, oh, I'm in, because I was like, it brought me back so many memories from Climate.
And what was it like making all those gelatin foods? I just have to ask about the gelatin.
That was Caitlin Shelby, so she's the production designer on all those movies. Well, not Strike, because I didn't have anybody there, but like it was for Climate and Agnes and the new one, Country Gold. Regardless. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. She would go make these. Basically, I just said like, I want them to be eating some fucking wild foods, something, like Beetlejuice. Like you think the food is gonna like come out and eat them. Then we were like leaning so hard on the '70s vibe that she just like basically recreated some shit out of '70s cookbooks. I mean, that's for real. Like somebody made those and ate it anyway. So she would make it, and then put it on the table, and I was like, well, we have to get, an establishing shot of this food, like a presentation, which now in hindsight is very Wes Anderson, and I didn't, think about it at the time, but whenever people are like, it's like a Wes Anderson vampire movie, I'm not a big fan of Wes Anderson, but I guess I understand the comparisons and the compositions, but so she would make these foods, and then she would say what it is. This was just like us, when she would make it and then present it to all of us, like we're going to do the shot, she would say what it is. And I just loved her little voice so much that I was like, we have to do that in the movie. We got to have you announce what this food is in the movie.
That's amazing.
Very good. I love that. Okay, so we've talked about your horror history, your horror career, or your filmmaking career, but what film are we talking about today, Mickey?
Oh, boy.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, Liquid Sky.
Oh, boy. So, listeners, Liquid Sky. This is about a small heroin-seeking UFO that lands on a Manhattan roof, observes a bizarre, drug-addicted fashion model, and sucks endorphin from her sexual encounter's brains. Yeah, I guess
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That is a lot crammed into one sentence. But, this was the first time I watched this movie. I know it was the first time Mary Beth watched this movie. I have to ask, how did you see this movie? When did you see this movie? I want to know everything because I have a lot of questions.
All right. I was about 18, maybe.
Okay.
18 or 19. I was 18 because I was still living with my grandma at the time. We went to this older guy that we hung out with. He had an apartment in the city. We lived in Newcastle. God, I know it was there were 4 of us, and I rented it from like Hollywood Video just because I was like, this movie's cool, and we were going to drop acid that night, and we did. So we go into our friend's house to trip. Our big apartment in the city, real high up too. So you got this balcony where you can just see the whole city, and just like already an uncomfortable environment or unfamiliar. You know what I mean? Like I've been to the guy's house, but now we're staying the night there and we're dropping acid. So yeah, that has a lot to do with it. But the movie was just fucking wild. I mean, but I haven't seen it since then. Take the acid out of the equation. The movie's fucking wild. The movie is scary. What are just the choices that they're making? Like, if someone will turn and it's like just this weird ass music, all these very just this strange like subculture that was kind of like kind of 80s, but not really. Like it's still very like on a whole other end of the spectrum. And anyway, so we're frying acid and watching this movie, and we watched the whole thing. And I went home. I drove home. I was like, I can't do it. It was, I was already in like an uncomfortable position, but after watching that movie, fuck that. That was terrible. That was frightening. So scary. And so I always think about that. Like it's just some horrible nightmare. I always think about that movie. And anytime anyone asks me like the scariest movie, I'm like, fucking hands down, it's Liquid Sky, man. That thing is wild. So yeah, it's not jump scares or anything. It's psychologically fucking damaging though. Fuck that movie.
So like, okay.
But the movie's badass. The movie's awesome.
It's fucking badass, but
yeah, now I'm able to say it's awesome, but I mean it's still fucking frightening, and I'm not watching it again.
So like, what?
I've seen Salo like so many times. You know what I mean? I'm not like life. Trust me, that is not like nothing scares me. This movie is fucking frightening.
So, like, was there a particular scene or moment that really fucking scared you?
Let me just think about how I remember it in my mind.
Okay.
It starts out like they're. It's like isn't the lead's like it's like a woman dressed as a man. She has like blonde hair and has like a suit on, right? Or just
she's playing both characters.
Androgynous people. Yeah. Okay. I remember it goes to, honestly, it's very, I bet the movie, what's the movie, it goes around, they're in that little club, Neon Demon. Oh. Like after seeing that, I was like, oh man, I bet they got that shit from Liquid Sky. Cause there's that, because that's the way I remember that there was like this like girl, she's like singing some song.
Rhythm box.
You know what I mean?
My rhythm box.
God.
Like, she's like,
we gotta talk about
Yeah. And that's they're that weird like club, and that's wild, and I when I was watching Neon Demon, I was like, that is exactly like I guarantee you that's from Liquid Sky.
I was getting a whole lot of like inspirations that like things that I have seen since then that I feel are pulling from this movie, including, I mean, he's kind of revealed to be an asshole and a horrible person, but Marilyn Manson, he did this kind of glam rock album where he was like an androgynous alien.
Mechanical Animals.
Yes, Mechanical Animals, and there was like two versions of him. One was like a rock god, and one was like this alien. And he's like built this whole like kind of complex story around it. But like I was watching Liquid Sky, and I was getting immediately like flashbacks to listening to that album and kind of the ideas of that album. Kind of, I think
that album is nowhere near as cool as the music in Liquid Sky, though.
No, oh my god, the music in this movie.
The music in this movie, because I started watching it and I was just like, what is happening? Is this it's incredible, but like the more of it, like the longer you watch, the more incredible it sounded to me. I was like, this is perfect. I could not imagine any other music to this movie.
It's actually, I know everyone knows that Climb of the Hunter was very influenced by Daughters of Darkness. Daughters of Darkness, like that, the music in that trailer, when you like go look up the trailer, where she's like in the sparkly dress and she like says something, and then it like cuts to like a close up and it's like that weird sound. That shit, from what I remember, that shit is in Liquid Sky like constantly. Like they're always like showing faces, and then it's just like in that weird 80s dissonant, like I don't know, these little bells, like wild synth. I don't know what the fuck it is. It's wild.
It sounds like a kid's keyboard, like a toy, and someone is just like really stoned and like kind of making music and kind of just jamming their hands on the keys. And it's I'm sorry, go ahead. No, but it somehow all comes together to make sense in a very weird way.
Yeah, well, I don't remember making sense at all, but
maybe it was the weed I smoked. That might also have something to do with it. Like, let's be honest. yeah, very true. They just sound like some instrument that just doesn't exist anymore. Yes, exactly.
It adds kind of like an otherworldly, like definite quality to it. And I mean, it makes sense because it's about aliens that come in to steal sex in endorphins. So I mean, I get it. Yeah. But when you were describing the Daughters of Darkness with like the focus on the faces and the music cues, that is this movie to a T, where it is like you're watching something and then all of a sudden we're doing an interstitial of a plane landing, and we're having like a focus on like this woman that's being raped, and then it cuts to this German man getting off the plane. Like it is constantly just throwing transitions at you in such a weird way, coupled with that music cue that just sort of like, it's so disconcerting. It's
thunderstorming here, by the way. So if you hear something, it is storming. Sorry, that was my face
Perfect.
Was about it. It was like
I figured. Yeah,
there was
that's what it sounded like.
It was a huge crack of thunder, and I was like, "Wait, what?" Yeah,
I was wondering what that sound.
Yeah, it's thunderstorming.
Yeah, that or someone's breaking into your house and trying to kill you. That's what I was thinking. What was going on?
The family's downstairs, so they have to deal with it first. Anyway, it's terrible. But.
I don't remember. Like what you're describing, I don't remember. I didn't retain any kind of plot information from it. I'm not saying. I'm sure there's a fucking plot, or it's some kind of story. I just don't remember any of that.
There, yeah,
there's something there. I just don't remember any of it at all, and I just don't want to watch it again. Not because I'm fucking old now. I'm not scared. Let's be real, but I mean, like, I just don't want to ruin my memory of it.
Yeah.
By watching
I get that.
Well, I'm always that concern that if you revisit something you love so much, it's going to change. Like you said, like it's going to change, and you're going to be like, this isn't what I thought it was. And I don't know what happened with this one, but it sounds like it's such a specifically strong memory you have of it. It makes so much sense to like want to preserve that, especially around such a movie, like this kind of movie.
Yeah, wasn't it on Shudder?
Yeah.
Or is it still on Shudder?
No, it's not on Shudder anymore. It was. And it's also on YouTube, but I also bought the, so you said what movie you wanted to talk about, Mickey. And the next day I went to my local comic book shop and they had just started selling Vinegar Syndrome Blu-rays in store, and Liquid Sky was right there. And I was like, well, yoink.
Kismet.
And I'm so glad awesome. I did. It was so good because this is like, I really like rape revenge movies. Like when I got my master's, I wrote about them. And so I did not know this was like a rape revenge kind of style movie. And that was even more exciting because it's a woman using sex to kill dudes, which is absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Well, kind of. Well, yeah, kind
no,
of.
It is. I remember that aspect of it.
She thinks that she's the one who's killing the dudes,
but
doesn't know it's aliens. But, like, my favorite moment is when she's giving Jimmy a blowjob in front of everybody, and when he comes and the aliens, like, explode in his head, he just pops into, like, sparkles or, like, confetti and just falls apart, and everyone in the room that's chanting, go, 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 just goes, huh?
Yeah.
It's such a great moment.
It's fucked up, but it's so good.
Yes. Just like, it's so frightening.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that? People's, these horror directors these days, not me, but, like, I'm not a horror director, I'm a comedy director. But, these people making these horror movies, they need to go back and, see what worked on that movie.
No, and it's the aesthetic too, because I was reading about how, like, this movie helped launch, like, a very specific kind of, like, clubbing aesthetic in Brooklyn, or at least it's, like, credited as, like, it's, like, got that David Bowie vibe to it, but, like, to an even more of an extreme, and that I was watching it, my brother walked up to me, he's like, are those clowns? And I was like, no, they're not clowns. And he was like, are you sure? But I just, like, the production design is so good. Like, it obviously is a movie made on a low budget, but the design of, like, the costumes and the makeup and, like, the set design, it doesn't feel like that.
Did you guys look up the director?
I did. In fact, I found an interview with him for Interview Magazine around the time that the movie was redone and re-released in theaters briefly at, I think in Brooklyn maybe. And his idea behind it was to create a fable plot which would include all of the myths of the time: sex, drugs, rock and roll, aliens from outer space. And he said that he liked New Wave very much because New Wave had all these international elements in the style, and some of the things which he loved and probably couldn't find in America were Brecht and then Japanese kabuki. So I was immediately thinking that, Mary Beth, when you're talking about your brother walking in and seeing the clouds and stuff. And the idea behind this actually started from his wife. They were from Russia, and they had recently immigrated to the United States, and so they didn't speak English very well. And so she was writing a script about a woman who couldn't get an orgasm. And then she knew English, but not enough to finish it. And they met Anne Carlise, who plays the two roles, Margaret and Jimmy, the two kind of androgynous characters in the movie. And she moved in with them and helped them finish the script. And then that's how Liquid Sky came into existence.
There was a script.
There was a script. It's credited with 3 people. And, they kind of enveloped the idea of sort of like kind of renegade filmmaking, because they filmed in an apartment that Anne Carlise was staying in. She knew someone. He's like, I have a penthouse. Do you want to stay there? So they were living in this penthouse. She was living in this penthouse, and they had like all these people crammed into it filming. They didn't have permits. They filmed in New York and didn't without any kind of permits for anything that they were doing. And they were like one step away from like getting shut down all the time because they were doing everything illegal.
Fuck yeah.
It's awesome.
It's wild.
That's so
it's
cool.
Awesome. It's, like I said, I don't want to watch it again to, ruin my, what I think the movie is, but I want to watch it now. This podcast is making me want to watch it.
I feel like you'll have an even deeper appreciation, though, because it is such it's so unique, but also so progressive for what it is. Like, it discusses, like, I feel like I barely have ever seen bisexuality and pansexuality discussed as well on screen as I have in this movie. Like, there's all of these moments where Margaret is, like, very quickly, waxing poetic about, like, philosophy and, like, gender and sexuality, but for, like, very short periods of time, and then it ends. Like, it's got these really great snippets of her being like, my pussy has teeth. And I'm like, yes, it does, bitch. You are incredible. But, like, it's just so incredibly progressive with her character and, like, her own reclamation of her sexuality and her gender, which also happens again when there's a guy, her professor is, like, calling her all these awful names on the roof and, like, saying that she looks like a whore and, like, her outfit's a costume. And then she goes, but aren't your blue jeans theater? And I was like, my mind has been blown by the phrase, aren't your blue jeans theater? Like, it sounds like such nonsense, but it's just so good. Sorry. I really enjoyed this movie.
No, there's the part that like really stuck out to me because Margaret, the main character, is like, she sleeps with both men and women, and she talks about she gets confronted by it. She's like, homosexual, heterosexual, it doesn't depend on what genitals they have, only that I find them attractive. And I was like, this is surprisingly progressive for a movie in 1982. It blew my mind, the sort of things that this movie was actually discussing in amongst the weird what the fuckisms that were happening.
Well, there's no doubt that those people are progressive.
Oh yeah,
making a movie like that, you know what I mean? Like there's no doubt that they were on a higher plane there than whatever else was going on at that time.
Well, and even Slava, the director, apparently knew Warhol and had planned to have him in a movie that he was making before that movie morphed into Liquid Sky. Like he wrote a role for Warhol to be in his movie, and then that movie didn't get made.
I guess that's the only thing that you could really like liken that movie to is the Warhol 60s, or really like the late 70s, like early 80s kind of Warhol, where the whatever, like Max Headroom era, like you know what I mean, like that Warhol era was always him, like behind that weird the weird 80s effects and stuff, like you see like MTV, like early MTV.
Yeah. It's a very colorful movie too. I don't know if you remember that from your acid trip, but like I can't imagine like the feelings that this would give me under the influence of drugs, because like it is so colorful, and then it cuts to this alien vision because we never see the aliens, but we see what the aliens are seeing, and it reminded me of what would eventually become Predator. Like it gave me that sort of Heat Vision Predator vibes, except let's make it gay, because it's so fucking colorful, and it's just all these colors oozing in and out of each other, and it's a trip without being on drugs.
But like, and that's what I think is so, like, thinking about this in context of like sci-fi around that era, and like how everyone had these like elaborate just like designs of like aliens and different life on other planets, and kind of like wanting to make this big production. This movie, obviously with a low budget, but was able to create an alien that's kind of like fucking freaky and scary, with just like these colors and these really cool like computer generated representations of orgasm and explosions. And it's just when you're so used to seeing so many alien movies, it's really cool to be like, oh wow, that like there are so many other ways you could represent something so iconic in such an abstract way.
Oddly, it's not pretentious,
right?
Yeah,
for what it is.
Yes.
Yeah, and for what they're trying to get across, like, really isn't that pretentious,
And there's moments of like complete humor in this movie that kind of always take me by surprise whenever they happen, because there's like this subplot involving the German scientist that's studying the aliens, and he runs into Sylvia, who's the mother of Jimmy, the one kind of androgynous person that's played by the lead actress, and she invites him up to her house and orders shrimp, and she loves shrimp. So she orders like shrimp fried rice, and she orders jumbo shrimp, and she orders anything that you possibly from this Chinese restaurant that has to do with shrimp. She is ordering it. And then she's spending the rest of the movie trying to get in his pants, and he is more interested in his research onto the aliens. And she's like, well, why don't you take off your jacket and make yourself at home? And he's like, I should update my notes.
I remember
and
this.
She's like, orgasms, isn't that subject we were discussing? He's like, I think I should study my alien. Like, she is trying so hard to get that D, and he is so interested in the A. It's like, it's ridiculous.
Can you guys think of other movies that could have possibly been inspired by it? I mean, Neon Demon, I feel like is a given.
I'm trying to think off the top of my head. It's just like I don't know, but
it's just so singular.
It is. It absolutely is. And I feel like this movie probably has, like, you can see the tendrils in other films. I'm drawing a complete blank right now.
I know why.
And it's not like they're just being like, ridiculous and wild for no reason, or that their reason is not even necessarily to like a political one, or trying to they don't have an agenda or anything like that. It's just like, I feel like it's just like an extension of these people's like personalities, this group of people that like hung out and decided to make a movie. You know what I mean? Just decided to make art, and that's what it is. It's fucking art.
Yeah, and there's like when I was looking on Wikipedia, there's a lot of things about how they didn't get any real big actors or any real actors at the time. Like a lot of these people, this might have been their only movie or like their second movie, and they just sort of like all got together and did the thing. And I'm like, I think that's amazing. I love movies like that, because you would see that a lot with I think it was Larry Cohen that was kind of the renegade filmmaker that was filming in cities without any permits and all that kind of stuff just to get the shit done. And that was definitely a time where like people would go out there and just do that without, fuck the law, fuck whatever was going to happen. We're just going to get this movie made. And I think that's so punk.
Oh yeah, totally.
But, one of the things that like I really enjoyed, there's one moment in this movie where Margaret kind of goes on a monologue about the life that was laid out for her as she is putting on kind of in a way kabuki makeup. Like she is sitting there putting on like her makeup as she's ready to go out, and she's talking about how like she was taught that her prince would come and she would have his children, and on the weekends we would have barbecue. And she's like, or that she was taught to come to NYC and become an independent woman, but that her prince would come and be an agent and get her roles, but the roles wouldn't come until she was either 30, 40 or 50, and she'd be waiting tables. And she's talking about how like she was told to be free, so go fuck women because instead of men you'll discover freedom. And then she's like, men won't stop on you anymore, but women will. She's like, so come on, who wants to teach me? Like she is looking for that next kind of high, that next bit of love that she is not getting on Earth. And that is eventually when she orgasms and gets dissolved and goes on with the aliens. And it's such a heart of this movie that
just describing it, it sounds like fucking trash. Like, okay, like if I'm thinking about a movie, like, do you guys remember the movie I Shot Andy Warhol?
Yeah.
About Valerie Solanas, like those little plays that she put on, and her manifesto, and all of that, like, was more like agenda oriented. And that's what I'm saying about this movie is this is like similar material in that, like this is like spawning from the same, the same thread, like, but they're not capitalizing on it. They're capitalizing on so many, other things to draw your attention to where you're not just focused on that particular aspect of, of the whatever they're trying to tell, because they're trying to tell so much and they're trying to tell it in such a surrealist way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That it doesn't become heavy-handed like the Valerie Solanas stuff.
Yeah. No, and the one character, there's her, Margaret's sort of girlfriend, I guess, who is sort of a performance artist as well. She does this, when she's introduced, she is like beatboxing and doing this sort of like, I don't know, slam poetry about a rhythm box. And she is talking about like me and my rhythm box. And she's like, it never shits, it never sleeps. And I'm just like, this movie goes from this ridiculousness about that, and then after someone dies, she makes this poem about how he's dead now, shit, and you're going to hell, straight from your marijuana jungles, straight from your lies. Like, this movie can go from that to kind of dropping some like sort of sexual revolution, pansexual like truths, to then being about rape revenge. And I'm just like, there's so much going on in this little film.
But then also with the heroin epidemic as well. You know what I mean? Like when that was a bit like, heroin is still a huge problem, but in this movie too, that also weaves in that kind of the obsession of the time, and also like made me think a lot about how it's interesting how we film drugs on camera, like with heroin especially, and how it is like this weird spectacle of the act of doing drugs, which is so fascinating to me about like, I don't understand, I guess, like how we decided that was a way to depict drug use, and that was something that stuck out to me when I was watching this today and made me think about that.
Well, that's like what I was describing the first movie we made, like Trainspotting, because we thought it looks so fucking cool. What those guys, they always make heroin look so fucking cool.
Right.
I've never done heroin. I will never do it. I'm too scared. But
don't do heroin. I've lost too many friends and family members to it. Everybody, it's bad.
Yeah, exactly. I would never. But they make it look so cool in the movies.
Yeah, right. That's a good way to put it. Because I guess I like my relationship to it. It's hard for me to remember that people like it looked cool. Like I don't know. It wasn't as like people knew it was bad, but it was like it wasn't. You said it looks cool. It looks cooler in these kinds of movies in a weird way.
Yeah, totally. And then you have all the rock stars that have died of heroin, and of course they're fucking cool.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Weird.
So it's just
what a weird. Wow.
Yeah, it's just the cool drug.
And I mean, this movie kind of embraces that because everyone's looking for that hit, and it's done in such a color. It's such a candy colored because the way the film looks, it's such a larger than life sort of fable, and so it definitely kind of aggrandizes that as well. Unfortunately, in this film, but I do think that was sort of the sort of punk aesthetic of that time, and everyone was doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like I said, I think it was just and it might not have even been a subculture that existed. It might have existed because of that movie. You know what I mean? It might have just been that real small group of friends that just wanted to depict whatever scene that they were in as just something, grander than it really was.
I feel like, my stepdad, I wonder if he'll hear me say this, but he's not a club kid, but he was not this level of weird, but I feel like he hung out with people that were adjacent to this scene. And I wanted him to watch this movie and tell me how accurate it is to his experience growing up in Baltimore City in the 80s, and what it was with that kind of vibe. I'm always very curious, when he talks about that time in his life and how they did a lot of drugs and the weird shit they got into. It's incredible and terrifying that he was that young, being an absolute punk idiot.
The sort of we kind of touched on this a little bit, but the humor in this movie, there was a couple lines that I immediately had to take down because they were just it just really struck me as really funny. The part where Margaret's teacher comes and he's sort of hitting on her. He wants to sleep with her because everyone wants to sleep with Margaret. And he's like, "You were my best student." And she's like, "We spent most of our time in bed." And it's such a little throwaway line, but it's so funny because it's just that sort of dichotomy of him saying, "Yeah, you were my best student." She's like, "We only fucked." And then there's the later where Paul wants to entertain. And then he says, quote, "The way men have always entertained women. I'm going to show you the difference between men and women. I'm going to make you come." And she's like, "So what? I can come with or without you." It's just the sort of flippant attitude that she has towards these men that just want to make them kind of their possessions is just, it's surprisingly, again, revolutionary for this film.
Does that scene you're speaking of happens in that room that's from what I remember is she had did she have a blue sport jacket on, and then there was the walls were red?
Yeah, I believe
it was
so,
a dressing room kind of thing where there was a mirror. Okay, see, that's the only way I can remember the movie. It's just the visuals of it.
Yeah, it's wild.
I don't know. I'm sorry I hadn't watched it. I didn't want to watch it again because of the experience.
But I kind of I like
that much.
I like the vibe though of you just being, this is what I remember, and but you remembered a lot though from seeing it when you were. Well, it's not so much.
It stayed with me,
seared into your brain.
Yeah.
I can't imagine seeing this under the influence of anything because
it's too. I was 18.
Yeah. And I was really curious. That was one of the things I was really curious about because this movie does tackle a lot of sexual assault and violence and stuff. And I was curious if that ever. I mean, you obviously were a little older than I was. I was curious. In my mind, you were 6 or 7 when you saw this movie. And I was like,
oh, no.
How would this color your perception of the world at the time? But that's just even 18. I don't know if I'd be able to process this movie.
Well, I might be too young. I still might be too young to watch this movie.
I'm sure I would have saw it sooner, but I think that was the first time I had seen it. I just saw it. This was Hollywood Video, so this was on VHS. We watched it too. Mm-hmm. Hollywood Video. Do you guys remember Hollywood Video?
Oh,
I'm surprised that was at I don't know. Maybe I'm not remembering.
Hollywood Video had some cool shit.
It did. Hollywood Video was the place to go. It was much better than Blockbuster.
Cooler shit than Blockbuster. That's true.
Yeah, so Hollywood, and also you could rent it for 5 days or 7 days or something. I think it was 5 days. And if you got a new release, then you take it back and you get, $1 credit or something like that.
Yep.
Hollywood Video was awesome. Why?
It was awesome.
Why? I want Hollywood Video back. Anyway, so yeah, I guarantee I would have fucking watched that movie sooner. But that it was just released at Hollywood Video, and I was like, oh, well, this speaks to me.
I have to ask because I've asked someone else because but it wasn't the same there, and I was curious if this was just my local Hollywood Video. Did your Hollywood Video employees, did they have to wear suits, tuxes?
Excuse me?
Do you remember?
I don't remember tuxes. No, I don't think so.
Okay, because my Hollywood video, they were dressed to the nines.
Maybe.
Everyone had to wear like a suit and stuff. And I was asking someone else about this, and they're like, no, they were just wearing like a red polo or something. And I was like, oh, maybe this is just like my local area thing. So every time someone brings up Hollywood video, I have to ask, because I'm enthralled about this idea, because I wanted to work there, but I was like, there's no way I'm gonna go work at this place where I have to wear a fucking tux.
When I was 18, I got a really good job, and I kept it for like 16 years before I started, just making, film full time. And so I guarantee if I hadn't have gotten that job, I would have been like working a Hollywood video until they closed. I mean, I was there every day. I loved, it's just like, and I'd seen everything. I would go to other Hollywood videos. Well, maybe they have something different. You know what I mean? I loved that store. I loved that store, and I loved, and we still have them. We have a place called Vintage Stock. I don't know if that's a local thing or if that's, it's a place called Vintage Stock. There's a few of them, so I feel like it is a chain, and they still have, old DVDs. You go trade in your DVDs, you go sell your old DVDs. I can't help it. I'm a fucking sucker for it, man. I still collect DVDs. I love that shit.
Yeah.
Me too.
And I have a place, like, it's a similar thing. It's like my local record store is like a used record store, and you can bring in your old DVDs and trade them in, and then other people bring in their movies. And I have found some cool, like, Blu-rays that I wouldn't have thought to find anywhere else, and like some Criterions. It's really awesome. And every time I go, I always come back with at least 4 movies. And I have no shelf space left. They're just piling up everywhere. But I can't stop. And my fiance is like, where are we going to put all this? I'm like, I don't know, but we're going to find some space. So, yep.
I still order stuff on Amazon, or go physically shop for, just stuff that I know I'm not going to be able to find. The last thing I bought, like last week, was Sean Penn's first movie, Indian Runner, the first movie he directed.
Oh, wow. I forgot he directed that.
Indian Runner, The Crossing Guard, Into the Wild, and The Pledge. And then now he's got this new one coming out, Flag Day. I'm a fucking huge Sean Penn fan. I love Sean Penn.
Huh.
He's great. Huh. Sweet and Lowdown? That's like one of the best movies ever made. I forget it's Woody Allen, but whatever. It's great. It's such a fucking good movie. He's so awesome in it. But yeah. At any rate, what else?
But do we want to wrap this up and give a rating out of 5? Terry, how many rhythm boxes out of 5 do you give Liquid Sky?
It's me and my 4.5 rhythm boxes.
4.5 very good.
They don't shit, so they make good roommates, I have to say. They never sleep either, which is kind of weird. But no, I love this movie. I was surprised at how much I love this movie. I've had this movie since 2018, when I think I listened to it on Shockwave's podcast. They would talk about movies, and it was a Vinegar Syndrome release, and I ordered it, and now I've become like a sucker for Vinegar Syndrome. I signed up for their yearly releases, and they just deliver movies to me every month, and it's great until I run out of space, and then I'm like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? And I keep ordering more, because these are movies that you don't get to see anymore. And you find sometimes, not all of them are good, a lot of them are terrible, but sometimes you find a gem like this. And it's been sitting in my collection since 2018. I just moved. I went digging through my boxes trying to find this movie to watch for this recording. And I was so glad that I did. This movie, it's progressive, it's punk as fuck, it's dealing with a lot of things that like you would see in movies in the next 20 years, and it's talking about it in this little no-name 1982 movie about from Russian immigrants that moved here, didn't know English, and hired this actress to move in with them and write the script. I mean, like, this is amazing. I love this movie. What about you, Mary Beth?
Yeah, same. I don't know what else to say. 4.5 rhythm boxes for me. I think I'm so glad I have seen this movie and I've been exposed to it, and I can make everyone watch it now. And I have it on Blu-ray, so they can't escape me from showing it to them.
There you go.
And I just am like very excited to find a new cool, like a new take on the rape revenge movie in a really fascinating way with some really awesome bisexual ladies. And I am so grateful that I have to watch this. Mickey, you have the final word. How many rhythm boxes out of 5?
The final word. Let's see. So I have a love-hate relationship with this movie. I don't know where the love comes in, but it impacted me a lot. So giving it a rating, I don't know that I could. It's either going to be 5 or nothing.
Okay, that makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It does make sense.
Yeah,
I didn't retain any of the information other than the visuals and the aesthetic and the sound design, and I remember all of that very clearly. And just individual scenes. I guarantee you, I watched the movie again, I still will probably not be able to focus on what's actually happening. I will be so enthralled with the aesthetic of it all. Which happens to me a lot in movies, like just watching movies in general. But so yeah, it's going to be. I guess if I have to give it a rating, it's going to be all the way 5 because it's a movie that it does what movies should do. It's stuck with me all these years.
Hell yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mickey. Where can our listeners find you, and what do you have that you'd like to plug?
I don't know. What am I supposed to plug?
I don't know.
I've got, earlier this week I did some, what is it? Today's like Monday, isn't it? No, so last week I did some interviews about Climb of the Hunter releasing in the UK. And that movie, we finished that movie in like 2019.
Right.
So, and then I've got Agnes stuff coming up. It's really hard to, like I said, used to just making a million movies, and we made those 3 movies a year, like premiering them and blah blah blah. And now that they're getting kind of festival presence and press and having to do the interview, not having to, I love to do the interview. I love doing this. I love talking to people that I've never been able to find otherwise. But so I don't know what's what right now. I guess so. Climb of the Hunter's got that UK release. That's cool. That's happening. Love that movie. Agnes, I have some news about Agnes, but I don't know what I'm supposed to say and what I'm not supposed to say. You know what I mean? So yeah. I'll refrain from saying that on the podcast, but when we're not on the record, I'll tell you some news on that. Cool. Agnes is playing it fantastic. There you go. Cheers. I got it. Okay. All that stuff I said, forget all that. Edit that out. Here's what I got. Agnes is playing at Fantastic Fest in Austin next month. The festival that started it all, and I'm very excited about that. I've got a movie called Country Gold. Should probably be coming out next year.
Okay.
And yeah, working on a script. So just staying busy.
So you're gonna have another 3 movies by the time Agnes hits VOD.
By the
wherever
time
it's
this
going.
episode comes out, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, let's stay in touch. Let's talk every movie if we can, please.
Yes, please.
Oh yeah, would love that.
Well, listeners, you've heard from us, but we want to hear from you. What was your experience with Liquid Sky? Did you have an experience with Liquid Sky? Because I would love to know if you watched this when you were younger. Send us an email at scarredforlifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us directly on Twitter. I am at MB McAndrews.
And I'm a Gaily Dreadful.
And of course, don't forget to follow the podcast on Twitter at Scarred Podcast.
And please don't forget to review, rate, and subscribe.
Thank you to Eric Power for our artwork. Thank you to Sean Keller for our music. Thanks everyone for listening. Please stay safe out there, but most importantly, stay creepy.
And until next time.
Won't somebody please think of the Somebody please think of the children! Somebody please think of the children!
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
What is the briefing room?
It's a behind-the-scenes look at how the criminal justice system works and the lives of the people within that system.
If you love true crime, well, these are the real people who do the job every day of making sure justice is served.
Hi, I'm Detective Dave.
I'm Detective Dan. Together we have decades of experience in local law enforcement, a profession that we think is often misunderstood.
So we're going to explore how to do it right, and we won't shy away from when it's done wrong. These are stories you'll hear nowhere else. Unique, frank, and unvarnished.
From the team that brought you Small Town Dicks, this is The Briefing Room. Episode 1 drops on August 30th.
We'll meet you in the briefing room.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.